we are going to dive into the 4 metrics that will help you to better run and optimize your team. So, Mr. Andrew Kappel, how are you today, sir?
Hey Jake, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on board. I just crossed the 1 year threshold here at Skaled, so I'm getting called up to the
Thank
to the
you.
LI Live.
That's what
So
it takes. 1 year. It's if you've been
it's
here for 1 year, then you're in. Lila. Okay, Lila. I got it now. Okay, sorry about that. So Andrew, pumped to have you. So Andrew, I'll give him a quick intro. Andrew works with a lot of our clients, big and small. You know, he works with clients that have 100 plus sales reps, and he works with clients that have 10. So he gets to see it all. Neve from sunny San Diego. It's always sunny in San Diego, but it's always like 60 too. So it's like sunny, but then you always have to bring that hoodie because it can kind of sneak up on you. And Andrew is somebody who's got a wealth of experience both at Skaled. Before in a previous life, he was a leader of sales development teams. So he's got quite a bit of experience around this. And him and I talk, and both, on LinkedIn and other places, we talk about the future of how we measure success in this role. And I think for me, one of the big issues that I've seen for a long time is that, and I've got a little deck that Andrew put together too that's pretty nice. Is I really feel like it's always been effort. And Andrew's got kind of 3 other metrics to look at other than effort. And I feel like as we ask, SDRs and BDRs to do different activity types, that we've got to think smarter. And that the things that got us here, whenever really the SDR role evolved from kind of like the call center mindset, right? Which is like more calls, you make it happen. Then we introduced emails and all of these other things. So, it's really an evolution, that happens, that we've got to make sure that we're staying on top of. So we're going to jump in here. Let me share my screen here. Share screen. Oh, let's just do the Chrome tab. I find that that's a little bit better. All right. So we will go into full-blown slideshow mode. Let me see how that looks on the big screen. Looks good. Okay, good. So let's jump into it. For those of you, if you don't know Skaled and the work that we do, we've got about 40 plus people globally. We are really leading the charge on the future of the way that people build and scale their sales organizations, whether that's on the process side or the tech stack side. Nobody does more sales technology overhauls or deployments than we do. So we really have a strong understanding of what like the best of the best companies are doing to optimize team performance, whether it's a process improvement or it's a technology improvement. Martin Baker from Knoxville. I think I missed you. So good morning, good afternoon. I guess in Knoxville, we're probably in afternoon time now. So let's just kind of hop into some of the metrics now. So Andrew, talk a little bit about this. Talk a little bit about how you kind of came up with this framework, or just like from your experience, how you saw this framework,
Sure.
come into play here.
Thanks, Jake. Yeah, and it's a lot of probably frustration or dissatisfaction or just trying to figure out like what the best way to do something is. And I've learned so much from Jake, from your team, from the team at Scaled, and from the other thought leaders in the space over the past 5 years. I was able to go from a BDR or an SDR to an enterprise account executive, and then was asked to build out and manage a global SDR team. So incredible experience and opportunity. And I was always tinkering with the dashboard, trying to figure out the best way to fine tune it and to connect the input activities with the outputs and specifically the outcomes that leaders are looking for. And awesome to see Ben Murray. He's the SaaS CFO. I actually took his SaaS CFO course, and that course last year, it's for VPs of finance, for CFOs, for CEOs, of how they position and talk to their investors and the board. And something that I've realized is that the ultimate sophistication, and you can have all these different metrics, but the ultimate sophistication is simplicity. And if you can show input and output, so an activity or behavior that happens, and then leading to the output, which is a qualified meeting, and then leading to pipeline and revenue, investors like to see that. They can, we can show a whole bunch of complicated spreadsheets, but if you can show
Sure.
simplicity and predictable revenue. I think, what was it, around 2010 that the book Predictable Revenue came out, and it's still widely used and adopted. It's a beautiful title, and it captures what investors and leaders are looking for, and it's really important for SDR leaders and BDR leaders to speak the language of the leaders, to speak the language of investors, and to talk about what matters. And where that gets to is that, both in my previous roles, and then working with over a dozen clients here over the last year, every every client has many dashboards and metrics, and sometimes there's dozens. I've seen 30 reports on a single dashboard, and it gets
Of course. I mean,
confusing.
that
And
that
I
really
can't even
tells me,
imagine.
Andrew,
Yeah, Jake. I
what I
can't even
can
imagine
track.
what you're looking at. As the CEO and the investors, like, the eyes almost just glaze over. And so, always looking for ways to simplify it, and breaking it down into these four components, and fitting that to your business, and connecting all the input activities, the effort, and the effectiveness with the output activities of the meetings, and then what the investors care about, what the executive team cares about, which is pipeline and revenue.
Yeah, and um, I think that the important part about, again, you talked a little bit about the predictable revenue. At least for me, this is really where I think predictable revenue falls down. Is that I feel like predictable revenue in particular really focuses on effort, right? And where I feel like a lot of teams struggle is this over focus on effort. And that's why I'm kind of excited to kind of jump into this topic with you as a part of this. So we've got a Marley from Trinidad. I love it. She's working as an SDR at Chili Piper. This would be great for an SDR. If any of you have SDR leaders, I would highly tag. This would be a great episode for any of your SDR leaders, senior sales leaders to jump in on. But let's dive into effort, right? Effort, at least to me, is the one that I think. Why do you, I guess maybe this is a question. Why do we keep going back to effort? Why, whenever we look at these other metrics, right, which are other things, effective, how good is it, right? Like, how do you think about these four details here? These four kind of metrics to track, and why do you think, Andrew, we still continue to look at effort as like this north of North Star?
Yeah, absolutely, Jake. And I think as a leader, and this is for SDR leaders working with your team, you want to start with the end in mind. And so, us laying out here the four metrics, you only need four metrics. And if you start with the end in mind, you're looking at, okay, how is the SDR, or how is the BDR, how have they done on the outcomes? What kind of pipeline have they generated? What kind of revenue have they generated? If that's there, that's amazing. Keep doing what you're doing and keep getting more of that. Let's say the pipeline isn't necessarily where we want it to be for the specific patch or the territory that the SDR is representing. Then you want to look at the qualified meetings. Okay, do we have a lot of meetings? That's great. Maybe we could
Yep.
increase or optimize the qualification criteria, or multi-thread the accounts, or look for other ways to find mobilizers or potential champions, and navigate to those. So that's working with the account executive and the SDR manager, to optimize those meetings. If the meetings aren't there, then it's really important to look at, okay, our job as SDRs is to start conversations, to put ideas out there of, here's your current state, here's the future state. We could help you get there, to pique that curiosity. And it's really important to have conversations, and that's quality connections. And what we've defined here as quality connection is a two-way dialogue in which an SDR uncovers qualifying or disqualifying info about that account. And the disqualifying information is, they have a competitor, they just renewed, and
Yeah.
it's not worth prioritizing. So then you could actually take it off of your target account list, and that is valuable information. And it is keeping the SDR focused on getting conversations, and making sure that you're not just measuring the overall activity, the number of emails, the number of phone calls, because those are vanity metrics. You want to look at the two-way dialogue, whether that's happening on LinkedIn, whether it's happening on Vidyard, whether it's happening on phone calls or email. It's allowing the SDR to be creative to achieve what we're looking to achieve, the leading indicators to metrics 3 and 4.
Yeah. And I think What I love about this, and I think, I posted about something like kind of a similar. I think you've added the true kind of pipeline generated. Different teams we see kind of compensate people differently. I'd be curious to know how many of you who are SDRs or run SDR teams, and you can just put like a raise hand, or you don't have to raise hand. You can just do the like thumbs up or whatever emoji. How many of you actually compensate your SDRs based on pipeline generated versus solely qualified meetings? Because I kind of see two camps. I see one camp, and you can kind of tell me your thoughts, Andrew. I see one camp that says, well, the SDRs don't control that part, right? They don't control like what happens the next thing, like they control that. Like, why do you feel like it's important, or do you feel it's important, for them to add in pipeline generated as something that either SDRs are compensated on or something that they're not compensated on?
Absolutely. So, we could have trimmed down this the webinar, the LinkedIn Live name, to the rule of three, the three metrics that you need to run your entire business. And we could just say, hey, the effort, the effectiveness, and the output. However, that would be, I think, it would be overly myopic if you just stopped at qualified meetings, because you'd be missing the bigger picture to what we talked about at the beginning, what the executives, what the board, and what the investors care about, which is revenue. And so, a nice, simple way to think about this is you compensate, and there's everything is going to depend on your business. Like as Jake, you mentioned, we work with clients that have 10 reps and that have 150 reps, and they're going after different segments, different markets, different maturity in their offering. And so things can change and evolve over time. But a nice
Yeah.
breakdown is you compensate on the output, and that's directly in control of the SDR, which is the output, the number of qualified meetings. And then you
Yeah.
could do a spiff, you could do a bonus, you could do a special incentive for the outcomes of pipeline generated. And let's be real, let's be honest. If an SDR is generating qualified pipeline that's becoming revenue and awesome logos and revenue retention for the company, they're going to have a good opportunity to write their ticket for a promotion. If it's to an account executive, it's to someone in ops, to marketing, because they're helping the company achieve what they're looking to achieve.
That's right.
And so using the output as a simplified compensation model, I think Snowflake, they have hundreds of SDRs. They just pay on qualified meetings. That's amazing because it's
Yeah.
really simple. So the output is the compensation. And then where the SDR leader, they coach on the input metrics, starting with the quality connects, because that gives them flexibility to try out different channels, to experiment, to figure out what works. And then if you're not having the quality connects, like the phone is the best way to have a dialogue. I can't speak for every single industry, but it's a
Yeah.
good indicator and a proxy for effort.
Yeah, well, look, I think there's a bunch in there. I'm actually talking to Lars on Thursday. He's got some. I won't steal any thunder. He's got some cool stuff to announce later this week on Snowflake's SDR, and I think he's just done a tremendous job of really building a world class machine. And even his predecessor before that, Nicolette, who really kind of built out version one, they really have built out a really fun, high performing team. Um, I hope everyone is kind of listening to what Andrew just walked through there. I actually think it's okay to have a portion of SDR comp tied to outcomes. I'm with you. It should be heavier weighted, like, like 70-30 qualified meeting, output to outcomes. And the main reason is that I don't think it's a bad thing for SDRs to get comfortable understanding that the goal is dollars. That the goal is pipeline. The goal isn't just to book a meeting. And I think sometimes a lot of SDRs, they're very focused on what their job is today, versus like, are you learning the skills to make you successful, whether it's being an SDR leader or a sales rep, marketing, whatever it is that you might want to be successful at. So I'm actually a fan of having a small percent of SDR comp tied to outcomes, because, it's like, it gives them that extra gentle nudge to maybe go to that AE and be like, hey man, where's this one at? Like, etc. And if it's a small part of their comp, it won't overly distract them. So I think there's a lot of, opportunity there to do it either way. I used to be a purist. I used to be kind of in your camp of qualified meetings only, because they don't have as much control. But I think I've converted to being somewhat of like a hybrid of outcomes and output. But I think that the next thing that you said is really important. Measuring your SDRs at the frontline level to effectiveness. So these quality connects. Why do you think people don't do this? You know, Andrew, like, why do you think that organizations struggle? It's like, I feel like leaders just can't stop themselves. They're like, they can't stop themselves from doing these contests that are like, okay, we're behind on numbers. So let's, go to 800 activities this week. Like, why can't we start to focus on, 2 and 3 here? Like, why do you feel like no matter what, we cannot get out of our way from tracking activity for everybody, the exact same, no matter if someone's performing or not?
Yeah, I've been Jake, I've been trying to answer this question since I think 2019. I think you've been talking about this since 2019, and
Yes.
I worked on it at in my previous roles, and I realized that I think it's really important to break it down, where we're doing this webinar here, and like everyone can have a conversation if you're an SDR leader with your leadership, with your boss, if it's the VP of sales, the VP of marketing, and it's really important to align and make sure you're getting on the same page. You're focusing on what matters. I'm not gonna. I don't think you're gonna run into a lot of resistance if you're trying to simplify your business, especially if you're talking to the CFO and the CEO and keeping it simple, and then define what these 4 metrics are for your business and get as mentioned alignment with the key stakeholders, and then you need to benchmark and roll out those definitions to your team, enforce them to complete the activities, and then benchmark your current state and track it month over month. We have a couple of visuals later on in the presentation with some sample data. And what I've realized is that, yeah, I didn't do the alignment and I didn't get buy-in from the leadership team. And so I never was able to drive adoption. And that quality connect, the other answer, Jake, is that Outreach or Sales Loft or, a lot of all of the tools, they don't have a really easy way to track quality connect unless it's with an answered phone call. And what's
Hmm.
interesting is like it's hard to track or to capture a LinkedIn activity as a quality connect. And what I realized is that you want to measure what matters and focus on what matters. And if we're looking at an enterprise motion and the objective is to get 20 quality connects a week, that is just 4 a day. And an SDR can log those 4 manual LinkedIn touch points at the
Exactly.
end of their day or the next morning. I've worked with some clients where we'll actually add a phone disposition in Outreach, which is called
Exactly.
LinkedIn Quality Connect, and just have the team do it. Now, I've, where I've run into challenges is if you skip the align and define part and get the adoption or get the buy-in from your leadership team as to here's what we're going to do, here's how we're going to measure it. Um, then if you're just telling your reps to do it, some of them are going to do it, some of them aren't. What we have here with this sample breakdown, it's a little bit hard to read, but what we can look at here is your daily team averages for the number of calls, the number of quality connects per day, the number of completed meetings per day, and then lastly but not least, it's not a surprise that it's in green. That's the pipeline that is contributed, and that's on a per rep basis. You're able to look at, for an SDR leader, all of the ramped reps on your team, and you can even break it down by the number of working days in a month, and you're able to track. I think there's another slide, or I think there's another visual that you can track your progression of the number of calls per month, the number of quality connects per day. Excuse me, the number of calls per day on average, the number of quality connects per day, and then the number of completed meetings per day. You're going to get your benchmark at month 0 or the previous 3 months, and then you want to track that it's going up on a per rep basis. So this is sample data here. There's actually a spreadsheet, and we can share the spreadsheet model with everyone on this.
Yeah,
And
let's do that.
and
Let's
they're
share that
yeah
in there.
they're more than welcome to do that. Jake, I'm going to share it. I'm not in the I'm not able to comment to the whole group, but I'm going to send it to you in the private chat in StreamYard,
Cool.
and
I've
we'll
got
make sure we get
LinkedIn
that
popped
shared.
up, so I'll share it if you share it to me in
Awesome.
the
Yep.
chat
The,
on
the spreadsheet model is called Key SDR Metrics, Template, and Instructions. There's instructions on there. I recorded a 5-minute vidyard taking all the users through it. Happy to talk with anyone who wants to utilize that with their team and get their entire SDR organization just
All
tracked
right. So
against
I'm
those 4
sharing
key
it right now,
metrics
everybody. So just FYI, I've got
in,
it here. He sent it to me in the private chat.
in
So
the private
nobody
chat.
can StreamYard doesn't let you chat. No,
Yeah.
there's no site that'll let you comment. Here is the model details. Here are the model details. Yeah. model details. So I think, look, for a lot of you out there, kind of listening to this. All right, so I just officially dropped it in there. Make sure this shared settings, anyone with a link can access it. But hopefully this will be like a really good conversation starter with our teams. For a lot of people out there, Mahek hit it on the head here, right? It's easier to just do more than to coach to quality, which I think is so true. And I do feel like, it's part of it is that kind of predictable revenue mindset of like, activity equals. And I want you to think about, just real quick, this is just some like a history lesson for some folks on predictable revenue. It was based off of, the book was released in the late 2000s. I think, maybe you're right. It was 2010. But keep in mind, the data that book was based off of was a system that was ran in the early 2000s, the early days of Salesforce, pre-2004 or 5. Well, what do you think what was the LinkedIn didn't, I think it kind of existed, but no, it didn't. Email, people were tracking emails then, but not really close. It was all you had was phone calls. And so it made sense, right? If your team is all doing a singular activity, for activities to be more important, for activities to truly be it. Yanni, the book's actually called Predictable Revenue. It's by Aaron Ross. Shout out to Aaron. Aaron's a really good guy. He's actually a great human, by the way. The problem is just think about that. All of the data points in that book were based off of a time when really all you had was the phone. And so therefore every activity was a one-to-one to book a meeting. It wasn't to nurture, to send something, to build rapport. It was none of that. It was smiling and dialing. And so if you fast forward to today, here we are, nearly 20 years later, and we're still looking at activities like the same way that we did, 20 years ago. And I feel like, what Andrew put together here is a very simple, easy way to look at it. I know this is the way it's identical to how I look at it. Other really forward thinking, as not even really forward thinking, I think candidly, like logically thinking SDR leaders have started to realize, like, why are we managing everyone to the mean? Why are we managing top performers to this number and bottom performers to this number? It's like, if you really take a step back, like that makes absolutely no sense. Like, you can track all of this. You can track everything I'm talking about. I can track. And so again, if you're focused on output, which Andrew has here, or outcomes, and I can get there because because my skill set is I'm a great writer. So I can spend X amount of time doing a really nice relative email, and maybe I can do a video with it. But Andrew's not there yet. So he needs to make more calls, to get there. It's really about finding out what works versus having an ego around, this is how I think you should do it. I was always that rep that was like, hey, if someone else is doing something that's working, chances are I can do it. And so if they were making calls and they were getting success, great. I would make calls and get my success there. If I saw people doing videos, I'd be like, where's my ego? What do I care? I'll just make more videos. So I really hope that this session, hopefully opens some eyes. For anyone on this, definitely share this with your sales leadership. Share it internally. Take a look at what Andrew put together. I think it's a really great piece of content too. That's 100% free. And Andrew, parting comments, for anyone out there who's maybe an SDR or running an SDR team, what are some kind of parting comments or things that you think people, or actions that they could take, today?
Yeah. It's the quality connects, Jake. That's the one that you've been highlighting and that like you've been talking about for a long time that folks have been having a hard time with. And if you're an SDR, focus on those quality connects and track them yourself and meet with your leader, meet with your AEs and get coaching on it. If you're an SDR leader, review the team's quality connects on every single team call. Call out some positives, call out some objections, and help everyone get better, because you want to have quality connects to represent your company, your brand, and make sure that those are leading indicators to the output and the outcomes. So as opposed to just smiling and dialing, you should always be smiling whatever you're doing as an SDR, because that's going to come across your confidence
That's
and
right.
that you appreciate what you're doing. But it gives you a flexibility to experiment, to test out new channels, to do custom sendosos. I think Jake, you were sending mini iPads with a custom
Yeah,
video. And imagine the quality connects on there. You're going to track those quality connects, and then they're going to convert into pipeline and revenue. And so now you're away from the quantity rat race per se, and you're able to experiment and prove that it works. And the investors and leadership, they just want to see that you have an input output process that's going to lead to the outcomes that everyone's looking for.
that's right. That's right. And there's nothing wrong. Look, if someone is not performing and you have a baseline of typically to manage them to activities, to manage to effort, and we're not saying that couldn't be a very real thing for many of your teams. What we're saying though is that it shouldn't be the one go-to metric. The focus first on an output or outcomes, and then working it backward. How can I get them to be higher quality at generating this so they can work smarter and not just work harder? And I think to Mahek's point, that's where really thinking about this both ways. How can I work with my team to work smart? And then if we're not getting the outcomes from our smart work, then I guess we got to default to hard work. And so I think hopefully everyone out there, I want to make sure we kind of close on that note that we're not saying you can't have activities as a metric. What we are saying is that it's probably not everybody should be managed to them, unless they actually, need it and aren't putting in that effort. So Andrew, thank you, man. I think this is a lot of fun. Quick 28 minutes. People got their fill. Hopefully they got a couple of cool takeaways, things that they can do and really start to execute on, pretty much immediately. So I'm really, really excited. And I hope
Awesome.
everyone had a lot of takeaways. So Andrew, thank you for joining me, man.
Thanks, Jake. Thanks, everyone.
All right. Thanks,
Reach out
everyone.
anytime. Reach out anytime.
Yeah,
Happy to help.
hit up Andrew. Andrew really is. He loves talking about this stuff. I think we'd have to have like a test to see who's nerdier about sales, like who actually is like more nerdy about parts of it, because I think we both really care about sales and we both see, kind of both the science and art side of it. So I really enjoyed it, Andrew. Thanks, man. I really appreciate it. And we'll see everyone next week. Have a great one, everyone.